Now, if you haven't seen The Matrix Resurrections, I am going to be talking spoilers on this one, so be warned. As always, I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review, so let's get to it. Now, first of all, my video keeps getting taken down because of copyright claims, so I've got to remove all the clips, so this is it. Please leave a like for me trying to upload that 5 times and getting copyright struck every time. So, the question you've got to ask yourself is, what the fuck's going on? And yeah, I'm going to answer that straight away. So, this movie is set 60 years where we left off with the Matrix Revolutions. And basically, what's happened in that time is there has been a civil war between the machines, and then there's been a sort of political power struggle between man as well. There's basically 2 branches of humans that survived, or 2 thoughts when it came to humans that survived Zion, which was the ones that want to work and coexist with machines and the ones that want nothing at all to do with machines. Now, the 60-year gap does explain some of the technological leaps that we've seen in the trailer, such as the operators appearing in the Matrix, and they also don't need to use phone lines to exit the Matrix as well. They now do it through mirrors. And I think all the tech stuff that they added on here is absolutely brilliant. One of the huge questions that had been hanging over the trailers and even the movie is, who is this Morpheus? Because it's not the original Morpheus, it's not Lawrence Fishburne. And I had a few theories on that before I watched this. I thought that Morpheus might be a title, you know, like General or Colonel, and it's just something that's inherited. But we actually find out that this Morpheus is a program. There's actually an agent, first of all, created by Neo. I'll get to that in a minute. But he's now a sentient program that's aware of who he is. And in this future, programs can also appear in the real world. You might have seen the trailer, there's like a sort of silver, dusty version of Morpheus, and that's the program in the real world. And we see other programs in the real world as well, and I think that was absolutely brilliant that they get to carry this over. But for some reason, the programs in the real world don't wear clothes. Now, you're probably wondering what's going on with Neo and Trinity. So, to answer the question, yeah, they did die at the end of the last film, but it was a machine that resurrected them, hence the name of the film. So what's going on here is that Neo has been trapped in the Matrix. Now, this is where it gets a bit meta and twisty. So, he's in the Matrix as Thomas Anderson, who he originally was in the Matrix. But now, he thinks that the events that happened in the first Matrix film are now a game in the Matrix. So, he's the creator of the game, and he basically has had a lot of mental health issues with this, where he thinks that the Matrix is real and he done all those events, and he goes to speak to a psychiatrist or an analyst to help talk him through it. And you see it in the trailer that he's taking the blue pill. So this is what the machine's trying to hide him in the Matrix and convince him that, you know, he's Thomas Anderson, he's not Neo, and all this stuff happened. Now, this is where it gets really meta, and by that I mean, when they're talking about the first film, they talk about it the way we talk about it, and the way that we talk about the sequels. There's a scene where Neo, or Thomas Anderson, is talking to his business partner who helped create the game, that Warner Brothers want a new Matrix from them, and you're like, whoa, that's a pretty deep clip. That actually knocked me kind of off my seat a little bit, and I think the meta stuff in this film is going to get examined for years. I've watched this film 3 times now, and I still cannot decide if the meta stuff is absolute genius or it's a little bit too far. Because the sort of standard 3-act setup for this film is there. You know, the first act is what the fuck, the second act you do get all the answers, and the third act is just a big action thing. And that's one thing that I'll say that this film does really well, is it answers almost every question that you have going in, and it also adds in some stuff that was left over or carried over from the last trilogy. For example, the machines are helping humans to grow strawberries using the DNA code of strawberries in the Matrix, because obviously strawberries don't exist in the real world, so they're sort of cloning things from the Matrix and making them real like the programs. I thought that was great. I thought all the new machine stuff was great. I thought the line about the machines having a civil war made sense, because I didn't think that everyone was going to be happy with how the last Matrix ended. I'm not talking about the audience here, I'm talking about the people in the world. And we do see Niobe as well, and she's the one that sort of tells all this to Neo and lets him know what's been going on over the last 60 years. And while it has been good, it's not been great. the Matrix that we see in this film is a new version of the Matrix, so some things are slightly different. When Neo does get free, he doesn't have all these powers, you know, he can still do kung fu and he can sort of use telekinesis to throw people across a room, but he's not the sort of god level power that he was. And one thing that does let this film down is the action. It's not there. Like, the Matrix is stapled for its action, especially the first two films. Well, the first film, but the second film as well. There's just so much original, interesting, fun, creative action in those films, and it's not here. This just feels kind of flat. Now, whether it's a COVID thing, whether it's an age thing, whether they didn't care, I don't know, but there's a lot about this that doesn't feel like it ties in with the other three films. And I get that, you know, the Matrix, as in the place it's imprisoning humans, is a new version of that, so maybe that's why it looks different, but the whole blue-green tint thing is gone. The whole style thing is gone. The style's just not there. And one thing that I noticed that majorly let this down is the music. I mean, the first film is just memorable song and score after memorable song and score, and even the second one as well. The score to the second Matrix, I think, is probably better than the first one in my opinion. And there's no memorable music in this film at all, which was completely disappointing to me. I was wondering what they were going to do with it, and they decided not to do much. Now, I've not mentioned Trinity yet because she's not in it as much as you might think. So, as I said, Neo is convinced that he created the Matrix game and that he's based Trinity on this woman that he sees in a coffee shop who is Trinity, but now she's back in the Matrix. She's got a new identity and she's married with kids and she's called Tiffany. Also, Easter egg, Tiffany's husband Chad is the man that was the stunt guy for Neo in the first couple of films, and also the John Wick director, so we're getting more meta stuff on this. And I'm sure, let's say I've seen this 3 times now, I'm sure there's far more meta stuff than I'm ever going to pick up on, because I started jotting down Easter eggs and I think I stopped when I got to about 50. There are scenes that are shot by shot remakes of the first one. When they get Neo out the Matrix and he wakes up on the ship and they give him the big exposition dump about what's happening, that's pretty much scene for scene of the original, and even the opening shot is a scene for scene remake of the first one with Trinity escaping the agents, but things are different. I know this is a spoiler review I should say, but I'm not going to include every spoiler because I always think you should come to it not knowing some things. So this film is really good, but it's not great, and it's certainly not Matrix great. The way that they've continued the world building made sense to me. What they've done with the characters didn't necessarily make sense to me. And the CGI at times just looks very ropey and not put together that well. I wasn't a massive fan of the sort of rescue mission in the third act. There was just a little bit too much action. And there's a lot of great ideas and concepts in this film, like, you know, the reason that the Resistance haven't been able to find Neo is that although when we see him, he looks like Neo and Thomas Anderson or Keanu Reeves, but when everyone else looks at him, he looks older, so they've changed the way that he physically manifests in the Matrix. That's why they couldn't locate him. And I think the idea of changing that, and they also mentioned things like bot accounts and stuff, there's a lot of like really relevant stuff here, like bot attacks as well and bot swarms, which I thought was really clever. But for all the good ideas, the only thing you're going to talk about in this film is those ideas. There's not a standout action sequence or anything in terms of the physicality of the film that's interesting. Everything that's interesting is in the script, in the page. The whole thing about who the villain is as well. I mean, the villain turns out to be very weak. He's just someone who wants to make a better Matrix. And they bring back Agent Smith for some reason. I don't know why. I think that was a little bit of a waste of time, if I'm being honest. The fight between him and Neo didn't feel exciting, and that was the one I was looking forward to as well. But all in all, I did generally enjoy this film. I'd give it probably about a 7 out of 10. I think it came out at the wrong time, because coming out a week after Spider-Man, the biggest Spider-Man film that's ever been made, is going to be a hard follow-up, and the fact that Spider-Man was only cinematic, whereas this was HBO and cinemas, is probably going to knock it a little bit. I do hope we get to see more of this world, though. Jessica Henwick as Bugs was absolutely brilliant. She carried the movie a lot more than I thought she was going to do, actually, and the rest of the characters are absolutely great as well. There just aren't that many memorable ones, really. I do hope we get to see more Matrix, but I hope it is maybe without these characters. I know that does sound harsh, but it's just the way that I feel. I might do a video on the Easter eggs of this film. Like I say, it'll probably take me about a month, but I'm such a huge Matrix fan that I'll go there. I never really talk about it that much, but The Matrix is like the one for me, especially the first two films. I was so drawn into them. Back in the days of message boards, before we had social media, I used to spend hours going through all the theories on The Matrix and what it meant, and I like that they addressed some of that in this film. But as always, let me know what you think in the comments below, or you can follow me on Twitter at The Geeks Reviews. Was this worth the wait? Did it answer the questions that you wanted answers? And do you want to see more? That's what I want to find out. As always, my name's Al. Thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, please leave a like in the video and subscribe as well.